The 2024 election is just around the corner, and it's starting to look like history will repeat itself and Donald Trump will be sworn in again as President of the United States. And if that happens, I think we could be on for one of the biggest bull markets we've ever seen in 2025. To understand why, let's have a very quick look at what happened when Trump first got elected in 2020. In the early days of the Trump presidency, the S&P 500 was on the tear, going up and up and up and up, and then all of a sudden,
Dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here. China has more than 200 confirmed cases of coronavirus, it's called, which produces pneumonia-like symptoms. 3 people have already died from this illness, which has spread to at least 3 other Asian countries. New video sent to CBS News claims to show hospital staff wearing protective gear, and that is protective gear, in Wuhan, China, considered ground zero for the outbreak.
we all know how that ended. Suddenly the economy shut down globally. Central banks printed money to get us out of trouble, assets hit all-time highs, and then
Inflation in the U.S. reaches a 40-year high due to surging prices for gas, food, and rent. Data from the Labor Department shows consumer prices rose 9.1% from a year earlier.
The inflation rate has been through the roof, with prices up over 40% since 2020. And this comes to the first policy of why I think Trump can unleash the US economy and let the S&P 500 hit new heights. The first real reason is his approach to tackling inflation.
I don't know if people realize that, 10 to 15% of the entire economy is energy, right, and it weaves its tentacles through everything else. So $5 gas affects the bread truck who's delivering the bread, and that affects the cost of the bread then. And so, getting that plentiful changes everything.
So I have a little thing that I've been saying lately because I think it's easily achievable. We pay very high energy costs, and especially now, but we're paying very, very high. I believe I'll be able to get energy down to 50%, 50% of what it is right now within a period of less than a year.
Wow.
That's pretty good. It's going to happen fast, okay?
The approach of slashing energy bills would have a profound effect on the US economy. Energy is integral to every industry, as Dave Ramsey mentioned there. There is not one company that is not impacted by energy prices. If you look even at the top companies in the S&P 500, your companies like Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, Meta, they all have huge outgoing energy costs. And even during this time, they have been able to accumulate massive gains in the stock market. If we reduce the energy costs associated with that, the profits of these companies will grow even more, and this can mean more things like dividends and consumer buybacks from these companies, driving even higher stock prices. If we even look at examples further down, companies which utilize transportation, companies that use logistics, all these prices will reduce, and this in theory will be able to be passed back to the consumer. At this point then, consumers should have more money in their pocket, which means they can spend their money on things that they like, which again will have a domino effect on raising prices higher and booming the US stock market. How Trump proposes to do this, I believe, is the second major contributor to the potential bull market in 2025. The change in policy from the current Democratic stance on oil and gas exploration will drive forward US economy growth and should be seen across the S&P 500. Let's take a listen in.
The failed administration that we're in right now, what they did was they turned off the energy. They turned off everything that I had built.
So you turned back on the Keystone. You're going to turn back on the drill baby drill line and the
it's drill baby
in your
drill.
acceptance speech at the convention.
Sure. It says it all. I'd like to use another line, but there's no line that's better. And we're going to drill baby drill. But the fact that they turned it off, and then the energy, if you look back at the very initial period of their administration, the numbers started going through the roof, the energy numbers. Inflation was good. And then they went back to Trump, where they're trying to equal it. And it kept it bad as opposed to horrific. And it's been really bad. And the energy has been very expensive, but nothing like it could have been. So they went back to Trump type things. But we would have been now 3 to 4 times more. We would have been dominating the entire world on energy. We have more than anybody else, as you've heard me say, but as you also know.
Right.
I call it liquid gold. We have more liquid gold under our feet than anybody else, actually by far. We would have dominated. We would have been taking care of Europe. We would have been taking care of Asia. We would have been taking care, Anwar in Alaska is the biggest find anywhere in the world. It could be as big as Saudi Arabia.
The renewed approach of the United States utilising its current resources and exploring for oil and gas on the scale of something similar to Saudi Arabia may not be guaranteed. However, it would make the US an energy leader and make it energy independent. It is likely then that the savings would be passed across the Americans who would have more money to spend and likely grow the market. It would make the Americans extremely competitive in the US and their exports to grow even further. And as the US market is already fairly dominant around the globe, it has the potential to supercharge it even further. So this increase in the use of resources to cut inflation all go a long way in predicting a strong economic outlook. And this is even greater when then looking at what Trump proposes to do with his tax policy.
I took taxes from 39% to 21%. You know that better than anyone. It's the largest tax cuts in the history of our country. And that was great. That's why we became so successful.
You think,
it's funny.
You think we can do that again?
Yeah, I think we can go lower. And I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm bringing it from 21 to 15, but you have to manufacture your product here. And then you pay 15%. And then I'm going to put tariffs on countries so they can't come in and steal our business, so that our businesses now can be competitive. Not that, China came in and just stole all our furniture and many other industries, by the way, including steel. And I saved steel by putting 50% and 100% tariffs on all of the steel that they were dumping. But we're going to do, so in other words, this is a dream for you then. We're bringing the tax rate from 21. Remember, it was 39, and it was really 50 if you add state and local and all of the other things. So we're going to bring it down from 21 to 15.
So this policy is really twofold. In one way, it should automatically reduce the amount of taxes that individuals have to pay in the United States. And that should mean reduced household bills. And that should, in theory, mean then more capital in order to allocate to what they want to utilize it for in the economy, which is good for the economy and should drive growth. The second thing here, and Trump done this in his first stint, was it tries to bring manufacturing back into the United States and increase the want for companies to actually do business there. So that in turn should also have a direct impact in the economy and make the United States more competitive, driving economic growth. And since the S&P 500 kind of works like a sponge absorbing money out of the system, this should mean asset value goes even higher up as the economy starts to grow. So although assets are at a very high value right now, I actually think that these policies Trump's proposing could lead to even further increases in the pricing of the S&P 500. One of the biggest factors here, I think, is the rise of AI. So AI has been coming in massively, and looking at the value of S&P 500 companies, they're really driven by AI-related companies at the top. Your Googles, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, all of them heavily AI-focused. The biggest factor is that AI is extremely energy intensive, and in order to facilitate the US dominance within this market, the United States is going to need a massive amount of energy. And whether that's utilizing oil and gas or if they want to go for cleaner forms of energy, the proposed reduction in regulation that Trump's talking about, I believe, is going to be a massive factor in allowing this energy to be ascertained. He's already said that he won't allow China to dominate in the field and that the United States needs to be the top player. So all these things considered, tax cuts, energy cuts, the ability for manufacturing to move back into the United States, I think this all means one big thing: extreme growth in the US market in 2025. Now, this may not mean great growth for other countries around the world in 2025, but for most people who invest in the S&P 500 or pick stocks based in the United States, I think that this actually looks like it's going to be one of the rosiest times ever to be an investor. And for that reason, I'll be buying more stocks from the US market. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you don't agree with this, if you actually think it's going to be detrimental. I know it's a itchy subject for some people to see whether they think Donald Trump is legitimately economically sound or if he just says things for popularity. But I think we're coming into a period where we could see the largest bull run in modern times going forward. And as AI grows, I think we're getting a strong accumulation of growth up till 2026 at least. So let me know down below in the comments, guys. If you like the video, please leave a like or subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And if there's any other topics you'd like me to discuss, let me know down below.